Welcome back to another episode of Rectalk, brought to you by Rectools. I'm Nitin Sharma, your host and the founder of Rectools. Rectools is the world's largest whole of market directory of recruitment suppliers for your recruitment agency. We also have a variety of free to use tools such as an AI playground, Marco Polo, a free job board, Rec Perks discounts, and a whole range of other stuff. So head over to rectools.io if you want to find out more. So today's episode is an interesting one. As we all know, it's been a really difficult kind of 18 months coming on to 2 years for most UK-based recruitment businesses. There have been a handful, some of whom have guested on this show, who have done extremely well and have kind of bucked that trend. And part of the sort of the ingredients to that success, they would admit themselves, is actually breaking into new markets and new verticals. And there's been a sort of a massive increase in agencies wanting to explore that route, and very particularly within the concept or the idea of going across the pond and establishing out in the US. So to kind of unpick that, the methods and the sort of the whys and actually the opportunity that's out there, my guest today is Clarke Bowle, the commercial director of PGC Group. Thanks for making the journey down today, mate. I really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot for having me, Nitin. Really appreciate the opportunity to speak.
Appreciate it, mate. So look, let's jump straight into it. I think the obvious thing is that let's start with what do you guys do? What is PGC Group, and kind of how do you guys fit into my mindset of wanting to move out into the UK, out of the UK, sorry, into the US market?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from the UK. I've worked within the sort of recruitment industry within the last 10, 12 years. Amazing industry with probably not even arguably, probably the best recruiters in the world. And the world knows that as well. I can travel to Australia, America, no matter where I am, UK recruiters are known as the best in the world. And they want they want to hire UK recruiters. But the UK is an incredibly tough market.
Yeah.
I believe that UK recruiters are almost brought up in like a gladiatorial arena with high saturation, race to the bottom on margins, tough competition, really hard to sort of differentiate yourself from many competitors.
Mm-hmm.
So we find that the opportunity in the US is enormous. $200 billion market in the US, staffing revenue, compared to 50 billion in the UK. So it's 4 times as big. You've then got 25% less recruitment agencies, and recruiter margins are double, if not treble, than what they are in the UK. So I'll often describe a UK recruiter moving into the US as almost putting a shark into a goldfish bowl, because they're brought up in this incredibly tough environment. Then they go to an environment which is full of opportunity. Now, it's absolutely complex. It's not easy. It's tough. You've got to have a strategy. You've got to have a laser focus. You've got to have great partners around you. But it's very, very doable. So what our business does is we will take founders of successful recruitment agencies in the UK who want a piece of that American pie, but they don't really know much about federal law, state law, local laws, BD strategies, how state-by-state cultural differences will affect your BD strategy.
Okay.
So we literally walk them through a full discovery of the US. We give them all the tools they need, and we become the turnkey solution for placing W-2 workers or contractors. I can go into that in a little more detail shortly, and every other type of worker as well, until they've grew a successful US business.
So is it a perm heavy market or a temp heavy market out there? Because obviously in the UK we have a lot of kind of dual desk businesses, but majority of UK recruitment in terms of the SME world is perm heavy businesses.
Yeah.
Are they going to struggle out there?
Will they struggle? No, as long as they adopt the right strategy once they get there. And I think they need to change the strategy. And part of that is changing your pricing strategy, changing the way you look at things. The US is worth roughly 200 billion in staffing revenue. 89% of that staffing revenue comes from contract. 11% of it comes from perm. Mm-hmm. So what we find is the most successful recruitment agencies in the US aren't doing perm or contract. They're selling solutions. They're really going in with, talk to me about your strategy over the next 12 months. I want to take everything. Because if they go in with a perm only solution, or I give what perm roles have you got? This is what candidates I've got. Transactional type recruitment. they're effectively leaving 89% of staffing revenue
it's a
on
lot
the
of money to leave
table.
on the table, isn't it?
It's enormous from a $200 billion market, and they're really...
And are the clients more receptive to that consultative approach? Because I mean, here, business development is increasingly more and more difficult, and I get, some of the most kind of complicated inquiries that I get essentially call down to a poor business development strategy, because clients, whilst they want to build relationships and whilst these recruiters want to kind of get in and get work exclusive or retained, the clients just aren't engaging in that manner.
Yeah.
So what's the client mentality towards recruiters out there?
Yeah, great question. So I'm going to talk generally, because state by state it does difference, and you've almost got to treat the US as 50 different countries, because they have very big cultural differences. But
Interesting.
in the US, they have something called at-will employment. So what that makes for a highly transient market. So you've probably seen it on Jerry Maguire. He picks up his brown box and he just leaves because he's had enough.
Yeah.
Well, actually, that happens. So at-will employment means the employer can sack the employee at any time with no reason, and the employee can leave at will without any reason. So you could have a VP of a company being highly successful, who's got a better offer somewhere else and doesn't even tell you why he's left or she's left. They literally just leave. So what that means for a recruiter is, they want genuine partnerships with recruiters. They don't want a transactional relationship, because in the UK, you could be an employer and actually you could potentially know you're going to lose somebody 12 weeks down the line because they're on performance management. The in-house recruiter is already recruiting, and begrudgingly, if they can't find the role, they use a UK recruiter. In the US, they've lost the best talent at the drop of a hat and they didn't even see it coming. So if you're a recruiter and you've got a genuine partnership, you understand the values, you understand the business, you've got a great pipeline of candidates, actually you've got a business for life.
So candidate is king by that definition, right?
Absolutely.
And again, there's no point in sitting scrolling through job boards looking for active vacancies, because you're already late. I imagine the spec market is quite heavy out there then as well.
100%. And if you look at somewhere like Florida compared to somewhere like New York, so Florida will be like, we don't even want to talk about business just yet. Come with me. Let's have a barbecue. Let's eat a pub sub. Let's have some gator burgers. Let's really get to know you as a person, your values. Let's really get to understand that first of all, and then we'll talk about margins, blah, blah, blah. Whereas if you go to New York, you go, all I want to know is your margins. Give me an elevator pitch. I'll call you. You don't call me. So it's understanding that actually it's a UK business.
You might be better suited to this particular state than that. Yeah, because that's an interesting one. Because I always talk about kind of, I ran my agency for 7 years, and we used to drill into the guys that, whether it's a face-to-face meeting or whether it's Teams or whatever, if you're having a client meeting, really 90% of that meeting should just be shit chat. Get to know them, get to know their kids, find out what engages them, what doesn't engage them, what kind of things they're interested in. They know you're a recruiter. They know you're going to talk about recruitment. They don't want to spend an hour talking about recruitment. Yeah. What they do want to do is spend an hour getting to know you. Yeah. Of course you're going to be able to recruit. You wouldn't be on the phone to me if you wouldn't be in a meeting with me if I didn't believe that you could recruit. So that's almost like it's a byproduct of this conversation. Yeah. This conversation is more about, I have a budget that I can use for recruitment. Do I want to give it to you, or do I want to give it to the last person I saw?
100%. I think the big difference in the US is that actually the client is also looking for a long-term relationship. Yeah. They don't want to go through this beauty parade every time they have one role, because they're thinking, well, in the UK, I'll only have one role available in 6 months, so I'm not going to speak to you again for 6 months. In the US, they're thinking, I could lose 10% of my staff tomorrow and I've got no idea. I need somebody who I can pick up the phone to and have a burger with, or go to the bar with, and really understand.
So how does the TA relationship work with agencies out there then?
In terms of,
and I don't think they'd mind me saying this, but there's a lot of angst between talent acquisition teams and recruiters and agency recruiters here. Right? Yeah. They do a lot to piss each other off, and they both have, I think, an equally. It's both as much of each other's fault, right? Yeah. There's not one that's right and one that's wrong. What's the relationship like in the US then? Are they more open to agency engagement, given the fact that the end result is our VP of sales has just walked out, and until we replace that, our sales are going to continually drop, and that means more to us than having to pay out an agency fee?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think, I kind of mentioned it before, but if you think about the TA in the UK, they're already recruiting for a role that they know is going to happen in 12 weeks' time. In the US, they don't. So they will absolutely use TAs in the US. But reactively, this TA hasn't got a pipeline of candidates for every single role available.
But the recruiter has, because they're constantly doing
the specialists. They've got a team of people. So it is a much more amicable relationship. And the clients know that they need it's not a necessary evil like it is in the UK, and I hate saying that phrase, but it's true in sometimes.
It gets thrown around a lot more than we'd like it to be, but that is how they're described. That's how agencies are described by TA.
And it's only because they don't truly understand the value, and it's almost like a competition for who can fill the role. But in the US, it's I need this recruiter because I know the value of missed opportunity of not having somebody in that role for a period of time where they may leave now, right this very second.
Okay. And so, but being based in the UK, you can't go and have a Gator burger with your Florida client, right? You can't. You can't go and so surely there's that element of the relationship build that's increasingly difficult, because those US based kind of domestic recruiters are obviously going to have that first mover advantage and the ability to, at the drop of a hat, go and meet both their candidates and their clients. So how much of a part does that play in the
So there's definitely pros and cons of both. What we tend to find is, so we sort of support our clients with two basic models. So one is a recruit from afar model, and the other one is a land and expand. There's big benefits, especially at the beginning, of doing a recruit from afar model. So you're sat at your kitchen table, in Woking, wherever it is. Instead of down in the UK, you're now down in the US. Actually, you may not even have done this, and this is something I would recommend to everybody thinking about the US. If you just pick up the phone next week and ring all of your end clients and say, do you have any presence in the US? Do you currently have roles? You'll actually be surprised on how many will say yes.
Well, actually,
You've got guaranteed business, and we find a lot of the clients that we work with, they come to us reactively off the back of, well, we've just found a role with one of our end clients, Apple. We wasn't actually fully aware of all the roles they had, and they're happy to use us because they've used us for 10 years in the UK. So they'll start with a recruit from afar model, and actually until you've generated 100K in revenue in a particular state, there's considerable tax benefits of not creating a presence in the US, because the IRS don't really want to know you until you've done 100K in revenue. But you can test the water. Americans are a very proud nation, and rightly so. So you've got to make sure you're testing, but you've crossed your T's and dotted your I's. You've changed your website, your spellings, your phone numbers. You've done all the things that you should do to say that this isn't off a whim. I'm really going for it, but I'm doing it on a low cost, low risk basis, because I'm still using potentially the same employees I've got today. They're just dialing a different phone number effectively. And then once they've generated some revenues, which you absolutely can do, and we have some hugely successful businesses who've never even moved out of the UK. They might do quarterly trips and see great benefit in going to Miami once a quarter. But then once you go, do you know what? I'm making some good money here and I'm enjoying it. I'm going to land and expand. So then that's the next phase that we see people in that journey of right, where in the US do I want to go to? Here's the business. Here's where the talent is, but I want this lifestyle, or here's better margins, here's where the roles are. And you've got to plan it all out.
Okay. So can you share some examples of like clients that you worked with that have really done well? Like say some more success stories to,
Yeah, absolutely. So what's quite unique about what we do is we support businesses anywhere in the world to expand into the US. Predominantly it's the UK because of our UK network. But they all start with no brand in the US, no employees in the US, and no contractors in the US. If I just take one example of a business called Faden International, we supported the US launch around 8-9 years ago. So they had no brand in the US. They're an absolutely amazing business, by the way. No brand in the US, no employees in the US, no contractors in the US. In the last 8 years, they now have 9 offices 8 different states, and 650 plus consultants in the US.
Just in the US.
Just in the US. We launched S3.
And how does that compare to the UK?
So
or have they completely just ditched the UK market?
No. So they're still very, very good in the UK, but it's funny you should say that, actually, because some businesses will be 100% revenue generating from the UK. They'll be happy with 10% from the US.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, over time, they realise that actually my business is becoming a predominantly US business.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when they go, we need offices, we need space. Why are we focusing on this market? Because even if we win an opportunity, it's a 10% margin. If we win it over here, it's a 30% margin.
Yeah. Okay.
And we see that a lot. I mean, we launched S3 into the US. We now work exclusively with S3 Canada. You've probably seen this guy on LinkedIn or Twitter or various pieces of social media, but a guy called Jamie Fraser.
Oh, yeah.
He's unbelievable man. Very driven, knows exactly what he wants, how to get it. But we support those in the US. They're now launching another office in the US. They're an incredible business. But we work with so many incredible businesses who are doing extremely successful in the US.
So do you have to be a growing, scaling business or kind of lifestyle business be like?
Absolutely. So I mean, I mentioned some big ones there because of success stories, but I guess to the individual, it's how you measure your own success. And we have businesses who are still 1 or 2 people. So another great example. So we had 3 younger lads in the 20s who did 6 months worth of BD in the UK. They moved to the US, and within 3 months in the US, they placed 7 roles with a deal value of $99,000 each role, so $700,000 in 3 months. And then they were on the phone to us saying, "Is this normal?"
Which is really, really good.
Yeah. But for 3 lads who moved to New York, they're living their absolute dream. Great business, but then there's also the other side of that of, I've got a family. I just want to make money to support my family and pay off my bills. I don't want to move to the US. I want to stay in Birmingham or Manchester, but I'm happy doing that. I just want to generate some revenue and
I'll work those hours. That's no problem.
And that's equally successful because they can do the school run in the morning. They can do the school run at 3 o'clock, do some work in between, pick the phone back up at 6 p.m, work till 9 p.m. And actually that lifestyle absolutely suits them. If they wanted to, they could take a 7.5-hour flight to Florida direct. Yeah. And so it's absolutely workable for almost any situation. It's just how you can make it work for yourself and what you want.
It sounds almost too good to be true, though, right? So tell us about times where maybe it doesn't work out, or people that you guys might meet as a business and be like, this isn't going to work. Because because one thing I found on our kind of pre-conversation before we kind of went live with the podcast, you guys don't charge for anything that you do until the placement's made, right? So all the discovery stuff, all the information you provide, all the training support, the sort of legal support, everything is done pro bono, essentially, right? Yeah. So do you then meet with people sometimes and just think, this is going to be a waste of our time? Like this person is absolutely just not going to make it out of that.
So I don't think we ever look at somebody and think, this is a waste of our time. But there are people who go in with a certain view of, I want to make as much money as I can in the shortest possible time, and I don't really care how I do it. They're very few and far between, but we do get them sometimes. And our role isn't just about helping you with growth. It's actually ensuring you've got a compliant business as well. Mm-hmm. Because if you go to the US, you are at risk of being sued, litigated at some point. And we've even worked with businesses who already are working in the US, and then when we look at the business, we go, because if you go to sell your business, and a lot of people who move to the US think I've got a 3, 5, 7 year exit strategy. I want to grow my business. If you can demonstrate you've got a successful business in the largest market in the world, you're increasing the multiples on your business all the time. However, if somebody in the US looks at your business and you've got a non-compliant contractor base, you think you've got a business worth 10 million. Actually, it's full of litigation and actually it's not worth anything because as soon as somebody buys it, they're taking on all the risk as well.
All of that risk, yeah.
So I would say people who aren't as successful as what we would like or they would like, or people who want to cut corners, we won't entertain that in any way, shape, or form. We're all about becoming your compliance partner as well as your growth partner. And sometimes you may not like some of the things that we say, but we're saying it with the best of interest for you to grow a healthy business. Or those who want to conquer the US. So we'll have people who say to us, I want to crack the whole of the US. Well, all of it. Yeah. Okay. So you're going to need a budget probably 10 times bigger at first than Coca-Cola, because you can fit the UK into Texas 4 times over.
Yeah.
You've got to have, it's about
realistic, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
So the UK market is smaller than the tech market in terms of revenue in the US.
Yeah, just the tech market.
Yeah. So if you cracked Austin, Texas, which is a place within a state, you've got more opportunity there than what you'd have in the whole of the UK. So it's about going to the US and not failing hard, failing fast, and spending a lot of money doing it. It's about having an absolute laser focus, a niche or a niche as they call it in the US, and really growing out from there. Once you've really created that laser focus and you're like, right, I'm making this work, then start to grow out, but don't go in with a massive net thinking.
You're going to conquer the whole thing. Yeah, it's going to happen.
Nobody's going to know your brand because you're so thinly spread.
Better people have tried and failed.
Absolutely.
And it's understanding that sometimes. That's fair. So, okay, let's create a bit of excitement then. So what markets work really well out there? What states should people be considering? You know what I mean? Like, there must be some kind of the brochure, like, oh, you should have a look at this,
Yeah.
Do you like Miami?
Yeah.
Get in this market. Do you like New York? Get in this market.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so I'll start by doing a cop-out and then I'll actually answer it. But it really depends on what you want. If you want a great lifestyle, sunshine for 300 days of a year, if you want sort of tech roles, go to Austin, Texas, go to Miami. You've got everything you could ever imagine in one place there if you're going anywhere like that. But the real up-and-coming ones for me are places like Florida. You've got Tampa, you've got Miami. I mean, even Orlando is really up and coming at the moment.
Really?
Yeah, on the tech scene. I mean, Orlando, you've got Orlando, you're 2 hours from Tampa, you're 4 hours from Miami. You've got lower costs for housing. You've got lower cost of living. So some people are like thinking, well, I could almost do it.
Central hub. And then,
yeah. I mean, you think of Birmingham, it's probably not too dissimilar.
Yeah. 2 hours that way, you're in London. 2 hours that way, you're in Manchester. Brilliant.
Absolutely. Anywhere in Texas is great. Austin, Dallas, Houston, they're fantastic. New York will always be a hub. Always be a hub. But interestingly, there are more Fortune 500 companies now in Texas than what there are in New York. And that was part of what we deemed as the great southern migration through COVID. Because each state not only has its own laws, it has its own taxes as well. So people during COVID were working in New York and going, well, I'm working from my bedroom. I can't leave my bedroom, but I'm still paying the highest rates of tax you could imagine. Why don't I work from a bedroom in Florida or Austin, Texas? And
it's going to be a damn sight bigger bedroom for starters. Yeah.
Bigger bedroom, less smog, more sunshine. But New York will always be fantastic, and there's always an element of if you can crack. New York makes many businesses. We started in New York. Our CEO will always say, if we didn't go to New York first, we wouldn't be the business we are now. So New York will always be great. California, often known as the diva state because of all the various laws, AB5 legislation that they have in there, ABC testing for worker classification. But it's hugely litigious, California.
I was going to say, is Silicon Valley still worth chasing if you're based
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, there are some states that are doing much better than others. I keep saying Miami and Austin. They are the up-and-coming states. There's not a state you could pick and you wouldn't find opportunity in. The Carolinas, North and South Carolina.
But you need to be super niche then. Do you need to be? Like, do you know, does it have to? Could you just go? Do you know what? Does it have to be tech or finance or whatever, or could you be not more generalist, but you're not going to do. Are you going to do blue collar? Are you going to do blue collar? Could you do office admin, secretarial? Would that model work, or do you really got to be in like a in demand sector?
So I wouldn't say it wouldn't work. But the businesses that we see that are successful really have a niche. They have a laser focus. That doesn't mean they're not picking up some of the other roles, and potentially they're doing some form of job sharing if they're picking up roles that they're not, but they're going in selling a really bespoke service. They even have names for the packages that they've got. They know exactly what the value proposition is, and they're going in as a specialist. We talked about TAs before, but potentially they're more of that generalist. And when they're looking for certain roles, they're thinking, well, I need a specialist now.
And therefore
Yeah, absolutely. Just American football is a prime example, but Americans love to do specific roles for specific people. I mean, you have an offensive team, you have a defensive team, you have somebody who throws the ball, you have somebody who catches the ball, you have somebody who runs on the left, it's not like rugby where you could be potentially all over the field at any given time, or any UK sport, really. I mean, imagine football if you had an offensive team and a defensive team. So Americans do like specialists in the areas, and I think you actually create a very honed skill in doing that. And then ultimately you can increase your margins as well.
You're paying for quality, aren't you?
Yeah.
This might sound like a bit of an obvious question, but I suppose, but equally the answer might be who gives a shit. But how do the US recruiters and recruitment businesses feel about this invasion from us?
They probably don't even know to some extent.
Oh, really?
So if you think that the market's 200 billion, there's 25% less recruitment agencies in the US compared to the UK. Even if every single UK recruitment agency moved to the US today, right this very second, it's still less saturated than the UK market by half. So,
but they would feel it in their revenue. Sure, do you know what I mean? Like if that starts, you start splitting 200 billion, sort of, more than the number of ways it's split now. People are eventually going to start being like, hang on, what's going on?
So possibly. I think the other element of that is that our UK businesses are creating US businesses over there with American recruiters as well.
So they're not
training them up.
Okay, fine. Yeah. So it's not as though it's not like a mass migration of right. I'm opening up a Rectal's recruitment company out there, and I'm going to send every Rectal's employee that I've got here over there. I'm actually hiring local talent and so on and so forth. So yeah, they're no different to any Tom, Dick and Harry based out in Texas going on and set up my own recruitment agency.
Yeah, and what we tend to find is that people know they're going to move to the US physically, land and expand in the US well before they're going to do it, and they should do as well. They should be making plans for that. So let's say they're going to do that in 2 years' time. They're incubating a small leadership team in the UK who get the culture, who get the values, who'll grow a successful American business in the style, culture, and values of this business. So they'll send over their elite squad of 2 or 3 people, might even be 1 person. Then once they've got things up and running over there, then they're hiring Americans in 1 by 1, 2 by 2.
And teaching them the UK way of doing it.
Exactly.
Because I remember when we spoke, the thing that kind of resonated was the fact that because of how UK recruitment is so saturated, is so competitive, is so kind of fastly senior first almost. Right, okay, so if it's not a mass migration strategy then, and they're hiring local talent, is what you're saying, right? So how does that play out in reality then?
Yeah, so in reality, they'll be doing a recruit from afar model. They'll know that they want to generate revenue from the US. They want to take advantage of 30% average margins. And then as they're starting to grow that revenue stream from the US, they'll think, right, this is working now.
Yeah.
What's my long-term goal? What's my 3-year plan, for example? So they'll start to incubate a UK team. They'll either already have these people within the business, or they'll hire a couple of future leadership roles, and they'll be very clear with them that I want you to make this a success from the UK into the US, but the plan is to move you
with the eventual goal of sending you out there.
Exactly that. And actually that's a real pull for some people will say, not for me, I don't want to move to the US. Some people think, what an amazing opportunity this is. I've seen it. Some people have families, they have wives, they have children, and they move the whole family over there because that's something they've always wanted to do, and our business has given them the opportunity. So they make it work. One or two elite people within that team who are really successful, but more than successful in terms of the revenues, values, culture.
They understand the brand,
the
business, the culture, what they're trying to do out there.
They trust them to grow an American business.
Yeah. And then it gives them that head start, as you said, because of the way the UK recruitment market is, they're almost getting a head start in sort of how they, when they land, kind of how they compete with the local talent and so on and so forth. To the jobs first, sourcing candidates in a slightly different manner and that kind of thing.
Right. Absolutely. And just going back actually to the point around the UK migration of people and sort of taking over in the US and taking a slice of that 200 billion. Actually, I'm just going to flip that on its head a little bit, because let's say the US is worth 200 billion. That's of current staffing revenue. And actually, the real gap in recruitment is the unfilled roles that aren't generating any revenue.
Yeah.
So I read a stat that said something along the lines of, if every role was filled in the US last year, it would add 3 trillion to the GDP within the US. So actually, that's where the real value is. It's in the opportunity cost.
So you're not taking from that 200 billion pie, you're adding to it.
And as all recruitment should be. If you look at the number of unfilled roles in the UK, in the US, that's where the real magic happens.
But that's a UK recruiter's mentality, right? Is, another recruitment agency opening up. Do you know what I mean? I'm going to have to give out more fees to split out, be more competitive, that kind of thing. Okay, so then I think some of the questions that I did have come in, which I thought were really interesting, was what's the US market's opinion on retained work? And I know you covered exclusivity, and they tend to be more open to giving exclusivity, provided you've won that relationship over with your elevator pitch or your personality or the combination of kind of your proposition, right? But what's the retained model look like out there?
We're seeing loads of retained at the moment,
right?
More so than any other model, I'd argue.
Okay.
Very receptive to it, and even things like replacements as well. So we will see a lot of the clients that we work with just do no replacements at all because of the at-will employment. No refund.
No rebate.
They'll replace but not refund as well. So retain good, replace not refund. I think you said before, it almost sounds too good to be true, and it is in some ways if you really can make it work. But I don't want to give the impression that anybody can make it work, because it's tough. But if you're a great UK recruiter, you're going to be a great US recruiter with more opportunity and higher margins.
Yeah. It's not for everybody, but for those who it is, it's
absolutely
not
for everybody.
Lifestyle.
It's absolutely not. It's potentially longer, different hours. It's potentially a move over there. It's potentially different strategies, potentially more complexities, potentially a little bit more cost initially with a return in the back end. You've got to consider all these things, not just for your business, but for you personally, and potentially the families of people who move over there. It definitely isn't for everybody. But if it is for you, you can make much more success of the US than you ever could of any other country in the world.
Interesting. So for PGC Group then, do you guys only specialise in this move across to the US market, or do you look at other country expansions as well?
Yeah, so we made a decision. So we've been going now for 23, 24 years, and we made a conscious decision to be an inch wide and a mile deep. So we wanted to become a specialist within North America. So we cover all 50 states in the US and all 10 and 3 provinces in Canada. So we cover the whole of the US. Could we have done PGC? Could have done Europe? Absolutely. Could we have done the rest of the world? Absolutely. But we wanted deep expertise in a market. I was going to say,
because like Dubai or UAE as a state seems to be the thing that worked really well for the real estate market, for example. A lot of UK realtors went out there and made a ton of cash and made a ton of, like, a great reputation.
Absolutely.
Because it was such a different market, and it's almost like very similar to our industry. We kind of train these almost little mini machines, right, that were just going to work more efficiently, faster and better than the local talent. And it almost feels like it almost feels like you guys are doing a similar thing, but within the recruitment sector for the US.
We're niching down.
Yeah. Well, you can't tout other people. Yeah, you can't have that be part of your sort of model, right? You know, you need to pick a niche and then at the same time be like, well, we haven't. You know,
and genuinely for us, I know this may sound a little bit crazy to some people out there, but within our office, within our team internally at PGC, we're genuinely high-fiving each other when we see a business do well. And do well, I don't just mean growing to 10 million revenue. I mean, like, you've got a lady who wants to support a family and she needs one deal per month, and actually she's made life-changing decisions and results in her life. Honestly, we're high-fiving each other in the office because we want to be able to support those businesses. We can't take any credit for their hard work, but we'd like to think that we give them some of the tools, some of the inspiration to be able to make a difference, and then they've got to go with it also. We could spread ourselves thinly. We could go a mile wide and an inch deep, but by having that deep expertise, we're able to really influence people and support them and give them what they need to make a success of it.
Yeah, no, that's fair. That's fair. Okay. Is there anything else that you think we haven't covered off that's important to mention?
So I would say, regardless of if you use PGC or not, if you are considering the US and you start Googling things, you will end up going down a rabbit hole where you will get so much conflicting information that it's untrue. And actually, I think that's the thing, or one of the things that will put people off the US, because they think, I want to make a go of it. They don't really know who to speak to. They look on Google and they go, well, I'm now more confused than what I ever was. Let's put it off till 2025. And then 2025. Yeah, exactly that. So if you want to make a success of the US, you've got to have the right partners around you. And that's somebody who'll support you with education. That's also cross-border accountants. That's also immigration if you're looking at visas. That's also potentially funding if you wanted to get into contracting. So whilst you may be a successful UK business, you've got to go into the US eyes and ears open, mouth shut at first.
But how much time am I going to have to dedicate? Because so if I am that bedroom recruiter, a 1-person, 2-person business, 5-person business, you know, it's all hands on deck. And how much time do I then have to dedicate to you guys and with you guys for this sort of almost upskilling and training that you're going to do? You know, do you know what I mean? Because it's almost, that could be the barrier, right? I just haven't got the time to dedicate to this. Yeah. Because you've got to be able to do it properly.
You've absolutely got to be able to do it properly. So if anybody says to you they know everything about the US, they're not being honest, because legislation changes every time, 50 different states, multifactorial, federal, state, local laws. So to become an absolute expert is a lifetime's worth of work. But can you know enough in a very short period of time to be compliant? I'm not going to pitch, but what PGC will do is we'll explain all the complexities to you and your business. But then really our job is to take away all of them from you. Yeah. So as a recruiter, what you're doing is you're finding your end client, you're finding the contractor, you're placing the contractor's details on our portal. We will onboard the contractor and take care of everything else. So actually, you know that you're compliant, and we'll take you through all that training. So I would say, will it take a lot of time? Yes, if you want to become an expert. Can you know enough in a short period of time to get up and running and then learn as you go along and ask us questions? Because we're always there. We're never charging for this. We've even created a recruitment academy that we give to our clients completely free of charge to train their consultants, 6 modules over 3 weeks, testing at the end of it, purely to help them to grow, and we can take anybody through that course. So I would, relatively low cost, let's say, terms of business, phone numbers, all of this type, a bit of immigration type stuff, you're probably talking £5,000-ish. We're not charging you anything at all for our advice, support, education. No. So it's only when you're making money that you start paying us off the back of the contractor's margins.
And like you said, you kind of consult in such a way that actually the fee structure is still beneficial to you as a recruiter. It's not as though you're giving away half your margins.
No, absolutely not. So if I mean, we have many of our clients will have direct approval for anything less than 30%. So they won't go below 30%. We see upwards to 45%-ish. But if you're making 30% with the end client, regardless of using us, you're still making 30%.
Right.
We talk to you about a pricing strategy, which is very different than the UK. Because if you think about the UK, which is completely legal, completely fine, the recruiter will say £100 to the contractor. They then give that to an umbrella company.
Yeah.
The umbrella company takes off from the gross invoice value the employer's costs, and then the contractor's left with 80, then they're paying. And that's why you get the whole, why am I paying two lots of employers' national insurance, employees' national insurance. In the US, it's different. If the contractor's getting $100, everything else is billed on top of that.
Yeah.
So the recruiter's margins built on top of that. Employer burdens are built on top of that. Our margin are built on top of that. And then that's the end client rate. So if you're making 30% margin, you're making 30% margin as a recruiter.
Yeah, you stack it in such a way. No, that's cool. Yeah, makes sense. Is there anything else that you think we need to cover off?
No.
There's a lot to, I think, take in here, right? No, my take on it is that, as I said, for 7 years I ran a recruitment agency, and I can identify in my head 3 consultants who would have absolutely jumped at an opportunity like this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And with how they operated their desks and how they ran their desks in terms of how their candidate management and their candidate outreach was, I think that market would have really suited them. But we just didn't know what route to take to get into it. And we did exactly what you said. You know, I did the Google it, go down a rabbit hole, end up on Reddit, watch a few YouTube videos, and then just like, it's fucking way too complicated. I don't do this anymore. I forget it. Yeah, it's just not going to happen. And it does strike me as a missed opportunity, because it's sort of like, as you rightfully said, you're leaving a lot of money on the table and a lot of opportunity on the table at the same time.
We all know, for the majority of UK recruiters, it's a tough market out there. And I understand how difficult it can be sometimes to even think about diversifying in a market that's really tough, because you think, if I look that way for a second, potentially I'm losing my bread and butter here, taking my eye off the ball. But actually, if you don't change something today, and your margin, your revenues today are less than the year before, and you're only seeing it going one way, you've got to make a change. And as a leader of a business, it's your job to understand when to make these decisions or not. 30-minute call, discovery call. Look, give me a message, and we'll just do 30 minutes. That's all we'll do. No pitch. Here's the US market. Go away, have a think, and just start thinking about things in the background. May give you a bit of food for thought. You may decide that you don't want to do it, but it's much easier.
Well, this is the point, isn't it? You might just need to speak to somebody for that half an hour and be like, no, I can't do that.
Absolutely.
Nothing about that floats my boat, or nothing 100%. About that fills me with confidence. But then there will be others that will be like, I could absolutely smash this out of the park. You know?
I have a friend who's working at a recruitment agency now. He's director of a recruitment agency, and they have consultants today who were great consultants last year. They're still great consultants, but they're not billing anything this year. Why not get the people who are potentially underperforming today, so there's no cost to it, dialing into the US from the same desk that they're at? If they're not billing anything today, what really are you losing? Give it a try.
Yeah. Well, this is it, isn't it? Yeah. No, great. Okay, so how do people get in touch with you guys? What's the process look like to engage? You know, Hit your way.
So really easy to get in touch. www.pgc.com. You can book a call in there, a discovery call with anyone on the team. Please look me up on LinkedIn, Clarke Bowle. Email me, clarke.bowles@pgc.com. Any way you want to get in touch, we're really responsive. If we're taking more than an hour to get back in touch, I'd be very, very surprised.
Yeah, no, fair enough, mate. This has been really good, really insightful. If you want to find out more about PGC Group, head to rectals.io. They will have a listing by the time this goes out. And who knows, maybe we'll be doing some more content and stuff together.
I'd love to.
But yeah, look, guys, thank you very much for listening. I can't recommend it enough. If you're a recruitment business owner, you've got a team of consultants who are, let's be honest, probably struggling right now. This is an opportunity that's sat on the table, ready for you to take. And get in touch with Clarke and the team. I think it's absolutely something that I should have looked at when I ran my agency. and I'd be really disappointed with some of the. So I do a bit of business mentoring and stuff, and I'm going to talk about exactly this to those companies, because there's some really talented people that I think could absolutely make a lot of money and kind of X their plans by sort of 5, 6. Right?
Yeah, I think what's the saying, that the best time to plant a tree was 100 years ago. The second best was today.
Yeah, that's it. True. That's a good place to leave it. I think we'll leave it there.
Right.
Thank you very much. Appreciate
Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you, man.
Appreciate the opportunity there, Nitin. Thank you so much.
That was good.